Greetings and welcome back to Haftarot, the weekly video cast in which we take a look at the upcoming week's Haftara, try to understand its basic message and its relationship with the Parasha that it follows. My name is Yitzchak Etshalom, and I'm delighted to be studying the Haftara of Parashat Tetze with you. And keep in mind that as we've been discussing over the past few weeks, the Haftarot of these 10 weeks, the 3 before Tisha B'Av and the 7 following Tisha B'Av, do not connect directly or in any obvious way or in a deliberate way with the Parashat Shavua. They are there seasonally, as associated in our case with a nechama, with consolation. We've spoken about this over the course of the past few weeks. This is the fifth of the 7 haftarot of nechama, and it is a very short haftarah from Sefer Yeshayahu, again from the second part of Yeshayahu. Take a look at it here, and you can see, by the way, that the Haftarah that we read 2 weeks ago, Aniyah Soara, starts right after the end of this Haftarah, and Pasuk Yor Aleph. And as you can see, it's 10 psukim, which seems to be quite short. I want to show you one thing here in this Haftarah at the end, although the studying this Haftarah itself would take at least an hour to do it properly. But one little note towards the end of the Haftarah, and then I want to take a look at the issue of brevity of Haftarot, the size of Haftarot. God makes a promise, and what's the promise to Am Yisrael, who he is consoling, who feels abandoned, who feels that God has turned against them? Ki mei Noach zot li, in Pasuk Tet. This is like the waters of Noach, which, by the way, we would call Mabul. But the word Mabul does not show up anywhere outside of the book of Bereshit, except in one kind of questionable place in Tilim Chavtet, Adonai la Mabul Yashav, which there may not have anything to do with a flood. And here the flood is called Mei Noach, the waters of Noach. Why is it mentioned that way? I took an oath that I would never allow the waters of Noach to flood the world. In other words, I took an oath that I would never again destroy the world. In the same way, God says, I took an oath that I would not be angry at you and rebuke you. In other words, I'm backing off, and I made a commitment never to go overboard in a destructive way with punishing you, but rather in a rehabilitative way, in a corrective way. And here, a beautiful imagery of God's everlasting love for Am Yisrael. Ki ha'arim yamushu v'hagvaot timutena. The mountains will crumble and the hillocks will fall. V'chasdi me'itech lo yamush. That vav in front of v'chasdi is what we call a vav hanigud, a disjunctive vav, which actually means but. V'chasdi me'itech lo yamush. My love for you, or perhaps my loyalty towards you, will never yamush. The same word as yamushu, will never disappear. Uvrit shlomi lo tamut, and the covenant of my peace with you will not crumble. Same word as timutena. Amar merachamech Adonai. God who consoles you has said this. So the Yeshayahu is speaking, or the Navi is speaking, and gives this promise that the destruction, the abandonment, the punishment that you felt is corrective, is not absolute. It is not really an abandonment. It was temporary turning away of the face. And now God has returned. If you take a look in Pasuk Chet, you could see it. In the rush of anger, I turned my head away from you for 1 second. But with everlasting love, I have consolation for you. In other words, the anger is momentary, the love is forever. Beautiful image. Now, just a note about the issue of a short haftarah. The Gemara in Masechet Megillah, as I mentioned a few times, haftarot were not originally determined textually, but just contextually and with some other parameters, including the size of the haftarah. In other words, somebody would get up to read haftarah, and he could choose which passage from the Nevi'im to read, as long as it accorded with some basic message of the season or of the parasha that was read, and fit certain other parameters. Now the Gemara, in the middle of the discussion in Masechet Megillah, in the third parak, about the amount of aliyot given on each day, asks the following question. Ibayalu, maftir ma'u she'aleh leminyan shiva. You have to have 7 aliyot on Shabbat. So does the maftir count towards that? What's the maftir? The maftir is after we finish the full Kriyat Torah, we say a Kaddish, and then somebody else is called up. He reads from the end of the reading that we just read and repeats the end of the reading on a normal Shabbat, and then reads the Haftara. Question is, does he count as part of the 7? In other words, you call up 6 and then call up him as number 7, or do you call up 7 and then he's extra? We have a machloket. So each one of them had an opinion whether or not he counts towards the 7. We, of course, in our practice maintain that he does not count. Manda Amar Oled Hakari. The one who said that we don't know which one of these are Chachmei or Israel. Here in Bavel, we're not sure who said what. But we know that these two rabbis participated and they had this difference of opinion. So the one who says that he counts towards it because he read, Umanda Amar Eino Oled Kedeula. And the one who says he does not count was following this observation of Ula. The Amar Ula, a student of Rabbi Yochanan, 3rd century, Eretz Israel. Why does the maftir have to read from the Torah? Somebody's going to read from the Nevi'im. He gets up there. Why does he read from the Torah? Torah. The answer is it's a lack of respect for the Torah to walk up to the Torah and ignore the Torah and go straight to Nevi'im. So to show deference to the Torah, he first reads from the Torah. Right? And since he's only coming up there for Kvod Torah, therefore he doesn't count towards the 7. But if that's the case, that means that every Shabbat we have at least 8 aliyot. So Meitave, here's the challenge. When somebody's reading a Haftara, they have to have at least 21 psukim. All right, so here's another one of the rules of Haftara, again, assuming that there's no set list of Haftarot at this point in time that people are following. And why 21? Keneged Shiva Shekaru b'Torah. Remember, the minimum amount of psukim we read when we add an aliyah is 3. And if the minimum amount of aliyot we have on Shabbat is 7, so 7 times 3 is 21, so we have 21 psukim in the Haftara. But according to you, who said that we really have 8 aliyot, 7 plus 1, there should be 24 psukim in the Haftara. The answer is, Kevan de Mishum Kvod Torah hu kenegdon amilobai. The answer is, you're right, there are 8. But number 8 is not coming there as an essential part of the reading. Number 8 is coming there for Kvod Torah. And therefore, he doesn't count towards that cheshbon, towards that calculus. And therefore, we count only 7 times 3, 21, and that solves our problem. But of course, our Haftara is 10 psukim, so how can we say the rule is you have to have at least 21 psukim? So mat kifla rava avare olotechem sfum. This is a Haftara that we don't practice, but an Haftara that was practiced actually dafka in Eretz Israel on Parashat Sav. But it is a passage that is very short. The answer is shani hata misalik inyana. So we find out that as long as the whole topic has been completed in less than 21 psukim, it is satisfactory. So in other words, we have a new wrinkle to this rule. You must have at least 21 psukim in a Haftara, except if you have a topic that is fully covered within the less than 21 psukim, that is sufficient. And that, of course, is the case with our Haftara here, Roni Akarat, which ends on the beautiful note, Uvrit v'chazdi meitech lo yamush, uvrit shlomi lo tamut, amar merachamech Adonai. Everybody should have a wonderful Shabbat and enjoy the Nechama and the consolation as the sense of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu continues and rises.